Welcome back to the deep dive. This week wasn't just big for AI. To be honest, it felt like a complete reset button was hit. If you've been trying to keep up with the headlines, you know this week was just dominated by Google. They showed, with absolute certainty, that they are very, very back in the business.
It wasn't just a launch, it was a flood, a complete flood. Our mission today is to really cut through that noise for you.
Yeah.
We're going to be analyzing the highly anticipated Gemini 3 launch, including the mind-bending performance of its DeepThink variant, and Google's brand new agentic development environment called Anti-Gravity. But we're not stopping there. We're also turning to the competitive field to dissect a massive strategic multi-cloud move by Anthropic, backed by, well, a staggering combined commitment from Microsoft and NVIDIA. You're getting the full distilled context of how this changes the game for developers and investors alike.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the sheer weight of new information it is. It's a lot to process. We absolutely have to start with the new frontier model, Gemini 3 Pro. What's the evidence that Google is really claiming the performance throne this time around?
Well, the evidence is just. It's immediate. It's comprehensive dominance. Gemini 3 Pro didn't ease into the market. It debuted instantly at #1 across all major AI arena leaderboards.
Instantly.
Instantly.
Yeah.
And this happened almost immediately after Grok 4.1 had briefly claimed the top spot in the text arena. I mean, Grok's reign was measured in hours, maybe a day, before Gemini just swooped in.
That speed, that turnover is staggering, but it tells us the performance is real. So for the developers and architects listening, let's get into the technical specs that underpin this claim. What makes this a true frontier model?
Okay, we need to talk about capacity first. It boasts a massive context window. We're talking 1 million tokens.
A million.
To be precise, 1,048,576 input tokens and 65,536 output tokens.
1 million tokens? That sounds like a huge number, but what does that practically mean for someone building an application with it?
That is the crucial so what. A token is essentially a word or, part of a word. 1 million tokens means you can feed the model an entire code base, multiple technical manuals, or even, I think the rough equivalent is like 1,500 pages of text.
In a single prompt.
In a single prompt. This radically changes how you developed agents because they have perfect continuous memory over these extremely long, complex conversations or code reviews. The model's knowledge cutoff is also exceptionally recent, January 2025, and the reported generation speed is robust, hitting around 128 tokens per second.
Let's pivot to the scores because the benchmarks are the ultimate proof. What were the most surprising indicators of its capabilities, specifically in, say, high-level reasoning?
Its performance was state-of-the-art across the board, with only one minor exception noted in some of the early chatter. It sits at the very top of the LMSYS Arena Text Leaderboard with a 1501 ELO score.
Hold on, we need to pause on that ELO score. For listeners who might not be deep into model benchmarks, what does using an ELO score actually signify?
That's an excellent point. ELO is what chess players use. It's a rating system based on head-to-head competition. So when you see a model with the 1501 ELO, it means that in anonymous, randomized, side-by-side public evaluations against other top models, Gemini 3 Pro is winning, significantly more often than it's losing.
So it's like a grandmaster ranking.
Exactly.
Right.
It's the AI equivalent of a grandmaster ranking in a rapid-fire tournament. Beyond that, it's leading the WebDev leaderboard, which assesses its ability to handle complex web development tasks. And it achieved really strong scores on the high-level reasoning test known as Humanity's Last Exam, or HLE.
And what is HLE?
HLE is designed to test common sense and complex, generalized reasoning that models typically struggle with. Gemini 3 Pro hit around 37% without using any external tools, which is a significant indicator of its inherent reasoning ability. It's really pushing the boundaries on what we consider true intelligence capability.
Beyond raw scores, I was fascinated by the new API controls, things like thinking level and thought signatures. These aren't just features. They seem to signal Google's intent for how developers should build complex AI systems.
Absolutely. Google is telling you, we want you to build stable, multi-step agents, and here are the keys. The thinking level gives developers a direct lever to control the computational intensity of the model's reasoning process for any given step. But more importantly, thought signatures are mandatory for ensuring reasoning continuity in multi-turn chains.
Okay, continuity. So what does that prevent?
It prevents the model from, well, forgetting what it was thinking. When an agent is working through a complex multi-step plan, say, researching 3 stocks, drafting an email, and summarizing a document, these signatures ensure the model doesn't lose its own previous thought process when it moves to the next step. It's a foundational mechanism for reliable agentic behavior.
Okay, that sounds revolutionary for development. But let's get into the user reality. A massive coordinated launch like this never goes perfectly. What was the ground truth regarding cost, availability, and, user feedback on day one?
The availability was impressive broad rollout across the Gemini app, Search, AI Studio, and immediate integration into major dev tools like Cursor and GitHub Copilot. That's a huge plus.
Yeah.
But the user experience was, frankly, chaotic. That's what a lot of users were noting.
Chaotic how?
Well, the pricing structure is the first hurdle. It's 60% higher than the previous 2.5 version.
Well,
For serious usage, costs jump dramatically. For up to 200,000 tokens, the input cost is now 2 per $1 million tokens, and the output is 12 per $1 million.
ouch.
Yeah. And on top of that, many early adopters reported a really frustrating user experience, being downgraded mid-session without explanation or running straight into a surprisingly strict 50 messages per day limit enforced by Google AI Studio.
Wait, you drop a frontier model, hike the price 60%, and then severely limit usage for early explorers. That seems counterintuitive.
It speaks to infrastructure constraint or a very high cost of serve, or maybe both. The model itself, users report, is undeniably strong for specialized tasks like one-shot code generation in frameworks like React or Swift UI. However, even on the coding front, there were complaints that it sometimes over-edits the code.
It tries to be too helpful.
Exactly, fixing things that weren't broken. So immense power, but a tricky, expensive, and sometimes restricted rollout.
Here's where the performance story gets truly fascinating, though. Google didn't just give us Gemini 3 Pro. They seemingly revealed their hand with a stealth-launched variant that puts even Pro to shame. We're talking about Gemini 3 DeepThink.
This is the DeepThink distinction. It's an unreleased, highly specialized variant focused purely on extreme performance. It's a demonstration of ceiling potential rather than a general release model. It's basically Google saying, this is what we can do when compute is no object.
And the difference is staggering, especially on a specific, extremely difficult benchmark, ARC AGI2. Tell us why this benchmark matters and what the scores reveal.
ARC AGI2 is a highly complex test. It's designed to gauge abstract reasoning and generalization, the true hallmarks of artificial general intelligence, or AGI. It's not about regurgitation or prediction. It's about solving problems the model has literally never seen before. The standard Gemini 3 Pro hit 31.1%, which is already excellent. But the DeepThink variant, it achieved a massive score of 45.1%.
45%. So it's almost half of the problem solved on one of the hardest reasoning tests available.
Exactly. That jump from 31 to 55% is noted by the community as a greater than 2 times state-of-the-art improvement on that specific benchmark. It suggests a major isolated breakthrough in high-level generalization.
But breakthroughs come at a cost, right? Is DeepThink a sign of things to come, or is it just a research vanity project?
It's both, and the cost trade-off is dramatic. If you look at the comparative expense, the Pro model runs at about 81 cents per task. The DeepThink variant, it's roughly $77 per task.
$77 per task. That's 95 times more expensive. If they are willing to spend 95 times the compute for a 14 percentage point gain on a single benchmark, what does that tell you about their research philosophy?
It tells you that these heavy gains are coming from what we call test time reasoning compute. They're essentially throwing vast computational resources at the problem at the moment of inference, allowing the model to think much, much harder and longer. DeepThink is currently a serious, high-end computational tool for specific high-value problem solving, like research or complex diagnostics. It's not something that can be commercialized widely until those inference costs drop by an order of magnitude. It sets the performance ceiling, but it also illuminates the current price of true intelligence.
That dramatically expensive intelligence needs an environment to be useful. So switching gears from raw model power to developer tools, Google didn't just drop models. They released a whole new environment designed to incorporate this agentic workflow. We're talking about anti-gravity.
Yes, anti-gravity. If DeepThink shows you the potential of AI, anti-gravity shows you how Google intends for developers to access and utilize that potential. It's their agent-first development environment, or IDE, developed by the former Windsurf team. This represents Google trying to own the entire AI-powered development workflow.
How does anti-gravity differ from just using the Gemini API within my standard VS Code setup?
It's about orchestration and scope. Traditional IDEs are passive, anti-gravity is active. Its core functionality is that agents orchestrate complex tasks across the editor, the terminal, and the browser simultaneously. This means the AI isn't just suggesting code, it's executing and testing the code in a live environment. And crucially, it includes a dedicated browser subagent specifically for running UI tests and interacting with the web. The system supports full recording, replay, and iteration with explicit human-in-the-loop validation steps built right in.
So it's managing the whole feedback loop, not just the code writing. Which models are handling the different parts of that complex orchestration?
It's a mixed stack design. The heavy lifting for reasoning, the thinking and planning, that's handled by the new Gemini 3 Pro. But the end-to-end execution, the actual ability to control the computer and perform actions like running a command, that uses the older but highly tuned Gemini 2.5 computer use model. And interestingly, image processing within the environment is handled by Nano Banana, presumably for quick visual analysis of screenshots or UI elements.
It sounds like a sophisticated front end for Gemini's agentic capabilities. What's the developer community saying about it?
It's available now for free public preview, which is key for adoption. Community members have pretty quickly described it as essentially a VS Code clone, a polished, new AI IDE coding agent. The consensus is that it's the most tightly integrated front-end access point to Gemini 3's powerful coding mode we've seen yet. It's Google's attempt to pull developers directly into their ecosystem by providing the best tooling for their new models.
That is an immense push from Google this week. Performance, high-end breakthroughs, and a new IDE. It speaks to a massive, centralized product strategy. But to connect this to the bigger picture, we have to turn to the competitive landscape, where Anthropic, a major rival, made a colossal strategic countermove.
Precisely. This pivot is the critical strategic development of the week, and it's all about infrastructure politics. While Google is centralizing power, Anthropic is distributing risk. They announced a deep technical and go-to-market partnership with both Microsoft and NVIDIA.
This sounds like a financial arrangement, but what's the core strategic implication of bringing in these two giants?
It's about securing capacity and market access outside of their existing infrastructure relationships. The financial commitment confirms the long-term stakes. Microsoft committed up to $5 billion, and NVIDIA committed up to $10 billion, specifically to expand Anthropic's research and infrastructure capacity.
So a total commitment of up to $15 billion.
$15 billion to expand infrastructure. That's not just venture funding. That's a commitment to building a parallel supply chain of compute and distribution.
Exactly, and the consequence is immediate.
It is. Claude models are now deployed on Microsoft Azure and Microsoft Foundry.
So if we connect this Anthropic deal to the centralization we just saw at Google, what is the crucial takeaway for the listener who needs to understand the competitive architecture of the AI landscape?
This is the critical piece of insight. This strategic partnership makes Anthropic's Claude the only major frontier model line available across the three major cloud providers. This is crucial for resilience and market penetration. It ensures Anthropic has broad reach and monumental infrastructure support, guaranteeing capacity and wide market access, regardless of whether a customer prefers to build on AWS, GCP, or now Azure. It's a calculated and deliberate move to be infrastructure agnostic, consolidating competitive power against companies that are primarily tied to their own single cloud offerings.
That frames the week perfectly. Google pushing the envelope with massive, high-cost performance and attempting to own the developer environment with anti-gravity. Meanwhile, Anthropic executed a monumental strategic move, securing $15 billion in funding and infrastructure support to de-risk their position and ensure multi-cloud dominance.
It was a week defined equally by raw compute capability and the high-stakes politics of infrastructure architecture.
And as we processed all these complex launches and strategic moves, there was a strange coincidence that the community certainly seized on for a bit of dark humor.
Yes. What's fascinating here is that the high-profile Gemini 3 Pro launch coincided with a widespread global Cloudflare outage. This outage caused broad service instability across many platforms, including several of Google's competitors.
And the immediate inevitable community response was the joke that Google intentionally crashed Cloudflare so they could launch Gemini 3 without anyone looking.
It's pure, dark industry humor. And of course, the two events were coincidental. But the incident, especially when you view it through the lens of this week's massive centralization, it raises a vital question that you should mull over as you process all this new knowledge. As the frontier model race intensifies, these foundational models and the companies hosting them are becoming deeply interwoven with the critical internet infrastructure itself. The Cloudflare outage was a real-world stress test. What are the systemic risks of such massive centralization and increasing dependence on a few dominant tech giants? It's something to consider as you determine your own company's strategic path forward.